Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen meeting for November 14th for the city of Hendersonville, Tennessee. It's approximately 7 p.m. and we're going to start our meeting as we typically do, and that's with a prayer followed by the pledge. Tonight we're going to ask Dr. Eddie Robertson, Alderman from Ward 6, to lead us in prayer.
We pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. From the foundations of the earth at creation until today, we see your wondrous grace, your radical love, and your everlasting forgiveness of our sins. O Lord, how great thou art, and great is thy faithfulness. From our first sounds of life until our last breath, may we always seek to please you and follow your holy commandments. Dear Father, we pray for your divine guidance in our deliberations tonight. From your holy word, we recognize that it is you who controls world events, you who sets up rulers and removes them, and you are the giver of wisdom. Unite us tonight in the cause of justice and mercy for the betterment of our dear city and its honorable citizens. O Lord, don't let our egos and self-righteousness divide us and prevent us from doing what is right in your sight. And where there is discord, may we bring harmony. Where there is error, let us bring truth. And where there is doubt, let us bring faith. And where there is despair, let us bring hope. We pray for our first responders as they serve you by protecting our community. Strengthen and protect these men and women and encourage them as they risk so much for so many. Bring them home safely each day to their families. Tonight, O God, we pray for the Bachman family. The loss of our friend and patriot Jim Bachman to a tragic accident last week. We remember his service to our country, to the community, and we pray for his dear wife Alice in her time of grief. Tonight, Almighty God, we especially lift up the people of Israel. Dark and sinister evil forces are trying to destroy your people. And we beseech you that your righteous indignation will quell the evil intentions of those seeking to kill the innocent and destroy Israel. We pray earnestly for a lasting peace in this most holy of places. We pray that you strengthen the Israeli armed forces as you did in Joshua and Gideon's times of old, as they hunt down the terrorists that committed these atrocities unimaginable against their people. We pray for our national and state leaders as they navigate the fate of the world and our state during this time. Let your Holy Spirit instruct them in every action taken, and that they and we be receptive to your direction. Now we ask for your blessings tonight, and we ask these things in the holy and precious name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Alderman Robertson, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll entertain a motion that we accept the agenda that is provided to you in your packet. So moved. We have a motion from Alderman Waters and a second from Alderman Dixon. I'd like to offer an amendment. We still have, I'd still like to keep under other agenda items, number 5, consideration of rescinding the motion that adopted Resolution 2023-43. I'd still like to keep that, but let's make that 5, let's make that secondary, I should say, to just a discussion of interlocal agreements with volunteer fire departments. So 4A is what I'd ask, is that we have discussion of interlocal agreements with volunteer fire departments. We may not want, with that discussion, we may decide that we don't need to take any sort of action rescinding the previous resolution, but I still want to have that discussion. We had a very lively and informative discussion in the Public Safety Committee, And I'd like to give everybody the opportunity to ask questions and get some information. So I'm going to entertain a motion that we add 4A under other agenda items, and that would be discussion of interlocal agreement with volunteer fire departments.
Second.
I have a motion from Alderman Goodwin, a second from Alderman Robertson. Alderman Sassy on this item.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
I just have a question. If we're consideration of rescinding the motion, wouldn't that include a discussion?
It would, but we get into some Robert's Rules of Order difficulties. So we could, in order to just have the discussion without this discussion item, we would have to have a motion to rescind, which would take 7 votes. If it doesn't pass, we don't get to discuss. If it does pass and we have a discussion, we at some point still have to pass something. So this gives us all options available. So we can have the discussion, we can choose not to rescind, we can choose to rescind, but at least we can have the discussion.
Okay.
Appreciate
Thank you
that.
for explaining that.
Okay. Oh, there's far more, by the way, when we get there. So, any other discussion on this item? All those in favor of adding item 4A, discussion of interlocal agreements with volunteer fire departments, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Thank you all. Any other discussion or proposed amendments to the agenda that was provided to you? Okay, so you have the agenda that was provided to you in your packet, and we have that one amendment. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. That passes unanimously. Thank you. We have no presentations or public hearings. Now I'm going to entertain a motion that we approve the minutes that were provided to you in your packet. Those are from the meeting from October 24th, 2023. We have a motion from Alderman Waters and a second from Alderman Garza. Alderman Peterson, were you going to mention that you wanted to abstain? Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes that were presented to you, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. And then we have one abstention from Alderman Peterson. Thank you all. That passes. Now we're on to citizen comments. We have a couple people who have signed up. Speakers must identify themselves by name and address. Public comment shall be limited to 5 minutes per person, which time is not transferable to other speakers. All comments are to be directed to the presiding officer, not to aldermen, city staff, or other members of the public. Comments must address issues, not individuals or personalities. Personal attacks shall not be tolerated. Comments may support or oppose particular issues or measures, but the motives of those with differing views shall not be questioned or attacked. Malicious comments will not be allowed. Speeches for or against particular candidates running for public office shall not be allowed. I'm reading from the top of the sign-up sheet, so everybody who signed up had the opportunity to see that before they signed up. Dalen Ferris on Alyssa Drive.
Yes, my name is Darylyn Ferris. I live at 109 Elisa Drive. And first, I just have 3 little comments. It's not on our agenda tonight as I see it, but I just want to let you know that, Mr. Mayor and Alderman, I am pleased that this pickleball court thing that was going to cost the city $600,000 has been postponed or whatever you're going to do. I'm told by a neighbor whose son plays pickleball. There's about 6 or 7 places up here, both indoors and outdoors, where you can play pickleball. And I know it was going to be next door to the Senior Citizen Center, but honestly, I can't see those people out there playing pickleball. And if they fail, the injuries they would sustain. But anyway, the other thing, when I was at the planning meeting last week, it was brought up about the changes, I think they call it now, the West Lake. Thank you, West Lake. And he was talking about, in particular, where H.G. Hills is, which is called Cash Saver. A lot of our people that live, especially on that peninsula, use that grocery store all the time. I have a friend, she's got a husband that is Alzheimer's patient, but he's able to get around. She spends about $500 a month at that grocery store. And the reason she likes to go there, she's got a bad back and it's easy for her to walk. She gives him a buggy so he can get his cookies and ice cream. And then it's so much convenience for other people that live on that peninsula. And, of course, H.G. Hills, as you all know, have been in the Nashville area for many years. I moved here in '62. And so that is a good company. And I know you want to try to dress up Main Street, but that's going to be something that they take good care of their property, and they pave it, they keep it clean. It's a nice little area. And even if they had to, which I hope they don't have to, redo that, you're talking about 30 months without the access to that grocery store. So please take that in consideration. And the other thing I like to say, this thing about whatever they're planning on building over here, well, on this property, if you're all thinking about putting in some kind of athletic event center or where you can have entertainment, that's going to be terrible up here because that's going to draw people like go to Nashville to these places. We don't need those kind of people up here. It draws a lot of bad people as far as crime, traffic, and everything else. And this is a wonderful little town here, and that's what I think of it as a town. And please, please, don't even think about putting something like that back there 100 feet in the air. Thank you.
Robert Little, Raindrop Drive.
I'm Robert Little, 314 Raindrop Lane. Why do we not need this income tax, sales tax, whatever you want to call it, here in Last month, I talked about the wasteful spending of redoing Indian Lake Boulevard left turn lane onto Anderson Road at Walmart. Well, the city did it again. We just built a brand new roundabout in front of Sam's, and we get to redo it again, wasting our money and no accountability.
It's hard not to speak up right now.
On April 18th this year, the Planning Committee had a meeting about the Stop 30 development plan. If you look anywhere on the website, there's unable to see any of the meetings, agenda, or anything else about that. There's no accountability. You guys want a tax to us? On June 20th, the Planning Committee had another meeting. Where are the minutes for that? There's no accountability for anything going on in this city. According to the person at the state of Tennessee, Tennessee Code 8-44-104A states that the minutes of meeting of any such governmental body shall be promptly and fully recorded, shall be open to public inspection, and shall include, but not include limited, to recorded persons present, all motions, proposals, resolutions offered, and results of any votes taken, and record votes that, and again, there's no accountability for this city. Explain why the city of Hendersonville hired a private company, Kimberly Horn, for over $200,000 to be consultants for a private company, paying almost $5 million for the corner lot of Drake's Creek and Stop 30. Did the city hire a consultant for the new Costco or the new flooring company coming to town? I don't think so. So again, we're wasting our money hiring consultants that we really do not need. Also, why did Kimberly Horn do a study for State Route 258? Isn't that controlled by the city? By the state? Still, why are we wasting money on construction people?
You can throw it away for all I care.
So the mayor, the councilman, I oppose this tax increase. You're probably going to do it anyway because you don't care about the city. But that's life in this city. Thank you much.
Larissa Moore, McGratney Dive.
To the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, I came to you on October 24th requesting a change in the process of letters from the city. I expressed my frustration with the process of reports being taken as truth without question. I have still not been contacted by the city to come to a resolution and change this process, and this is still not on any agenda. I'm here tonight to once again ask for the city to change the process of the letters sent by the planning and zoning enforcement officers. I will be here at every meeting until there is a change. You took it away from me, so now I need to know what you're going to do to replace it. So tonight I'm here to request the city to consider building a community center for the Hendersonville community. I have come up with those plans, a strategy, and programs. Gallatin has a civic center, and other surrounding cities have the same programs, but we do not. Why? We are not above this, and our community needs a place for residents to come to receive assistance, as well as getting needs met, such as clothing, classes being offered for employment, job training, and informational classes, and more. We have a ton of resources in this community that you are not using. I would ask that the city reach out to me to work together to help our community in need instead of writing letters to shut down my community that is in need. I have the experience, I have the heart, I have the passion, and I have the support of our community. A few months ago, I interviewed for a position in the Planning Commission department and was asked where I saw myself in 5 years. I told the director in his chair. So here I am, fighting for the city, fighting to change the direction the city is going, and fighting for the people who need help without jumping through your hoops. Our city needs a change, our city needs its heart back. Our vision for the city's direction is not towards sports domes, sports bubbles, parks, car washes, and chicken restaurants. Our city's vision should be compassion, empathy, empowerment, cultural diversity, uniqueness, love, acceptance, and a welcoming presence to all who live and visit here. If you don't know how to do that, just ask me, because I will be here leading it. I will not give up, and I'm not going to give up, and I will keep fighting for the community to change.
So I've got Sean and Nikki Corin next, so I'll call Sean first of Hickory Hill Drive. And then I'll call Nikki after that.
I'm gonna let her talk.
Okay, so you,
I'm sorry, I apologize, I didn't know how to sign up.
oh, you're fine. So if just one of you wants to speak, that's fine.
Yes.
Okay, Nikki, you're up.
Okay.
My name is Lori Corin, actually, but I go by Nikki. We live at 120 Hickory Hill Drive. And actually, Ms. Moore kind of gave a good lead-in for what I wanted to talk about this evening because I wanted it to be on record, that we admire her efforts, and we're not snobs by any means or mean-spirited about what she's trying to do in the community. In fact, my grandmother was a single parent in the 1940s and 50s when nobody else was a single parent. And I respect a lot what she's trying to do, and we fostered 12 children ourselves in our home, so we know that these social outreach programs are extremely important. But what I wanted to talk about, which refers a little bit to, I guess, a letter that Ms. Moore received, is that there is not a place for that in a residential neighborhood. As you know, that's why we have the zoning that we have, to keep all of that traffic off of our court and to keep hundreds of cars from going back and forth. Again, with that said, it's not in a mean-spirited way that we're saying this, but my husband and I had an experience several times with people actually yelling and screaming and cursing at us out the windows of their cars when we asked them to slow down in the court and things like that. So I actually like the community center idea, and I would support something like that, but wanted to especially go on record to say to please not allow these kinds of businesses in residential neighborhoods. I know that like other outreach centers like Habitat for Humanity, Samaritan House, Goodwill, yes, they charge for their items, but they charge for their items so that they can pay their people, build homes, and also afford to have a business store frontage for what they are doing. Additionally, as foster parents, as you guys know, we were vetted pretty severely and pretty strictly to be foster parents. So the other thing I would like to point out is when you have most of these people coming are likely wonderful people, they're likely on hard times and they just need a little bit of help. But sometimes those people are not the nicest of people, and you're inviting trouble into your neighborhood and possibly even into your own home. So we worked hard for 30 years to live on a quiet cul-de-sac, and we would very much like it to stay that way. And that's really the only reason we wanted to be here tonight, is just to make sure that our neighbors understand that we have nothing against what they're trying to do, but we do encourage doing it the right way, in the right place, and in a more, I guess, controlled environment. Thank you.
Thank you. We have nothing on the consent agenda, and now we're on to ordinance and resolutions. So we have second reading of ordinance 2023-20. This is an ordinance requesting citizens to determine by election whether to adequately fund public safety, infrastructure, parks, and paving in the city of Hendersonville by a small increase in sales tax of a half penny per dollar for only 10 years. Need a motion? We have a motion from Alderman Robertson, a second from Alderman Waters. Let me say real quickly that we are not enacting a sales tax, as was mentioned earlier. We're not doing that right now. We're giving people the opportunity to vote by referendum if they'd like to have a sales tax. But I think people understand that the way the economy has been and with inflation, that the city's had to cut back lately, and we've had to cut back, especially in paving. And so we're really offering an option, as Alderman Robertson said a couple weeks ago, is that to continue making cuts, which are going to hurt more, or to look at a property tax, or to give people the opportunity for a sales tax. And the people who would vote on that, it's not us. We're just offering the opportunity. It would be the residents and the voters of the city of Hendersonville. Alderman Robertson.
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to reiterate, we're not passing this sales tax. We are asking the people to decide. That's the proper role, I think, of government in this situation. I get requests frequently from Creekwood, from Glen Oaks, from other neighborhoods in Ward 6 for paving. Mr. Waters and I work hard, and we advocate hard for paving in those areas. And because of inflation, we've had to cut back paving. What this increase will do, if the citizens approve it, this will speed up the opportunity to pave the roads in Creekwood. So if residents of Creekwood want their roads paved, this will bring this about because we'll have the money earmarked to pay for paving in Creekwood. So again, this is simply just to allow the people to vote on it, and I look forward to a vigorous debate, an opportunity to kind of share a vision for this city and what we need to look like and the investment that we need to make. So I wholeheartedly, again, support allowing the people to decide, not us, but allowing the people to decide whether to increase sales tax a half a penny a dollar, which again, on a $20 meal or $20 price would be 12 cents more on that. So with that, Mayor, I wholeheartedly support this on the second reading.
Alderman Robertson, thank you. Any other discussion? Alderman Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to add that grocery food items and food ingredients are exempt from this tax. Is that correct?
Alderman Robertson, do you want to answer that one, or should I speak with Jesse? That's what we're trying to do.
What about the city
Yeah,
attorney?
Lance, do you want to explain where we are on that?
So we cannot exempt anything specifically from the tax. State law limits or it restricts that tax at 4% as it is. So I believe it would still go up. It would be the 4% plus the local option. So it would go up half a cent, but we cannot do anything about that. We don't have the authority by the state to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lance. Alderman Peterson, anything else? Appreciate that. Thank you. All those in favor of second reading of ordinance 2023-20, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. Thank you all. Now we're on to first reading of ordinance 2023-25. This is an ordinance amending budget ordinance 2023-11 by appropriating general funds in the amount of $86,615 for the Arts Festival and approving the mayor to effectuate festival agreements. Alderman Collins. We have a motion from Alderman Collins and a second from Alderman Sassy. Alderman Collins, go ahead.
I would like to offer an amendment, but which we've placed on your desk earlier. But before we get into that, I would like to ask to suspend the rules so that we can have Renee Shepherd make a presentation along with Good Neighbor, the consulting company that would run the Arts Festival.
Without objection, we're going to suspend the rules to hear from Renee and Jack.
Okay. Renee while she's coming to the podium, I'll just tell you that she's the chairman of the Arts Council, and she is a very well-respected member of our arts community here in Hendersonville, and she's done a wonderful job with the Arts Council.
Thank you, Rachel. You can hear me. So you have in your packet a lot of information about the work that we've done and what we're proposing. We're pretty excited about this opportunity, and we are fortunate enough to work with Good Neighbor Festivals, and Jack Davis is here with Good Neighbor to talk a little bit about maybe some of the work that we've done so far in these early stages to kind of gain some support and sponsorship. So early on, we've kind of gathered a little bit of that to boost where we are at this point in the game. So Jack, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Good evening. Jack Davis with Good Neighbor Festivals. We're a Nashville-based festival management company. We do mostly stuff in Nashville, everything from Tomato Art Festival to Nashville Pride Festival, Sevier Park Festival. About 1 million people go through the events that we manage every year. Renee contacted us over a year ago, and we've been doing some consulting and figuring out if there's a viability for an art or arts festival here in Hendersonville. And we've come to the determination that we'd love to move forward with that. If you all approve the amendment that's in front of you. We essentially are looking at this first year as a budget neutral year. The city's allocating the money, but we are out here raising that money. So festivals really make money from sponsorships, vendors, ticket sales, and then merchandise and some other things. But we're really focused on vendor recruitment, which we will be doing a nationwide search starting in December, and sponsorship, which we have already a commitment from our presenting sponsor, which is U.S. Bank. The tourism board, I believe, has already paid sponsorship, and then also, there's a third one.
The Evening Rotary.
Evening Rotary. Mm-hmm. We also have some pending commitments from public supermarkets, some beverage and alcohol companies. We're confident. The original budget had $35,000 in there as sponsorship, and we are pretty much there already. And for some perspective, that is more than we have for all of the other festivals that we manage for an entire year as of right now, because most of those commitments come in after budget cycles finish and start in January and February. But there are another 153 businesses in this area that we have on our list to approach starting right after the Thanksgiving break.
Alderman Collins.
Excited about this festival. One of the reasons that the tourism board signed on so quickly is because we don't have anything like this in our community, and the national level artists want access to our region, and they would rather not pay Nashville prices. So they're very excited, and I don't think we're going to have a problem getting artists to pay the vendor fee to be at the event. I don't think we're going to have any problems. Obviously, we're not going to have problems meeting the budget for sponsorships. So I feel very confident that while we're asking to appropriate the $86,615 for the Arts Festival, it will be revenue neutral for us. If this were a regular nonprofit, this step would not be necessary. It's kind of a bureaucracy thing that we have to allocate it in our budget in order to provide for it on paper. So I hope that everybody's going to be supportive and as excited about this as I am. I do want to offer an amendment. My motion to amend, you have a copy in front of you, is to create a separate revenue account for the Arts Council, that any funds remaining in the account at the end of each fiscal year will be retained in the account, and that this account shall be used exclusively for Art Council purposes. And the reason for that is because at this time, any revenue from this event or other revenue streams that the Arts Council might have would go into our general fund rather than being reinvested back into arts in our community, which is, of course, the mission and the reason we have an Arts Council. And it's obviously not to supplement the general fund.
So we have a motion on the floor. We have a second from Alderman Martin. Alderman Collins, you want to go ahead?
Oh, that's it.
Okay. Alderman Peterson on the motion, on the amendment?
Yes, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Doesn't the Arts Council already have an account with the city?
Who wants to explain that? Renee, you want to do it, or Jesse? Probably Jesse.
Maybe Jesse can help us explain
Okay.
that.
There is an expense account. We actually did create a revenue account last year to hold some of that money over, but what this would do is we would direct all those funds into that revenue account that we have for the Arts Council.
Okay. Thank you.
Alderman Sassy.
Thank you, Mayor. Quick question on this amendment. So we're expecting this to be revenue neutral, hopefully, right? But it's looking positive that's going to be revenue neutral in its first year. But if we reserve this, if we say we're going to put this into a reserved account just for the arts, then the city's not going to get this money back to become revenue neutral for the city. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
There you go.
That isn't, I think we need to ask Jesse. That's not the intent. The intent is that the budget indicates a $7,000 profit, which one doesn't know with a first year event. You know, you have no budget history to fall back on, but should there be a profit, that the Arts Council retains that rather than it going into the general fund. That's the intent. Mr. Ray wrote this for me because I don't know how to say that legally. And so Jesse, can you?
Yes, I thought that was the intent as well. So the surplus from the event. So if we appropriate $86,000, but we collect $96,000, then the delta, the $10,000, would go towards the Arts Council account for future years. Is that an incorrect interpretation?
No, that's what I intend. I hope that's what this says. It's not saying only revenue and not expenses, right?
Yeah, so the motion would be that all surplus funds would stay with the Arts Council revenue account.
So I guess, just so, I would ask that we just make that clear in this amendment.
That'd be a good idea.
And maybe change this a little bit to say after, any additional funds after, I don't know, Mr. Ray, how would you word that?
Surplus, net proceeds.
Yeah, surplus or net proceeds would be
So we've
fine.
got three words together, that any funds remaining in the account. Could we say that any surplus funds remaining in the account? Would that
do its job?
Well, only the surplus funds will go into the account, correct?
That's right. So the surplus funds from the event would be designated for the Arts Council account.
Okay. Yeah, I am in full support of that. I just do think that, you know, if this is a success, I want us to appropriate the additional funds if necessary on a regular annual cycle as normal, like we do with anything else. But putting those additional funds in the account, I'm in full support of.
Mayor Clary, do we need to amend the amendment or just?
Whatever.
Possibly.
My favorite term.
If y'all talk slower, I'll have an answer for you.
Would putting surplus in front of the word funds, I believe that, would that satisfy
Do you
everybody?
think that makes it clear, Jeff, or Alderman Sassy? So you put surplus in front of funds?
Any surplus funds remaining in the account. So all the funds are going to go into the account. It's just at the end of the year, anything that's left over after all the expenses are paid will just stay in the account?
Not quite.
No.
Because
Okay,
it says surplus
let me
funds
back up.
remaining in the account. Sorry to be a stickler. I just want to make sure it's all kosher.
Should we, so the first line where it says create a separate revenue account for the Arts Council, should it be for the, well, no, I'm not,
Maybe it should say create a separate revenue and expense accounts for the Arts Council.
Where's Tamara?
right now
I
Lance is,
don't-
We
right
need
now Lance
Tamara.
is thinking y'all aren't helping.
Did you give
What-
Tamara the day off, Mayor?
How about if we
Jesse.
say, creates a separate account, take out revenue, a separate account for the Arts Council that surplus funds, or for surplus funds, and take out remaining in the account, I'm sorry.
For surplus funds
for
after all
surplus
expenses
funds.
paid?
Yeah, that'd be fine, after all expenses are paid. And those surplus funds shall remain, and then in the account at the end of each fiscal year.
Alderman Collins, you with us?
I am.
You have a feeling on that?
I think that's what Mr. Ray and I had talked about earlier. It's the same thing. So it's good.
Okay, hold on one second. I'm gonna ask Lance to say that again. I need to make sure that Annette gets it. And
Okay.
then I'm gonna ask the person who made the motion and the second, if they're okay with that.
So, ordinance 2023-25, that creates a separate account for the Arts Council for surplus funds after expenses are paid. I think that was what,
Okay.
and those that remain at the end of each fiscal year will be retained in the account, and that this account shall be used exclusively for Art Council purposes.
So we're gonna put a period after expenses are paid, am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Those funds remaining, yeah. It's just adding those funds in front of remaining.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you to read it to us then, Annette. If you need help, just ask. Go ahead. Oh, hold on, let me go. So Alderman Collins, I need to make sure that you're okay with this. Alderman Sassy, I think you seconded the motion, am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
Did I? I don't think.
Yeah.
Oh, no, the original motion or
Yes.
the amendment?
The amendment.
The amendment, Martin.
Okay,
Martin, yeah.
Alderman, okay, so go ahead, Annette.
So the amendment would read, the motion to amend ordinance 2325 that creates a separate account for the Arts Council for surplus after all expenses are paid, and those funds remaining in the account at the end of each fiscal year will be retained in the account, and that this account shall be used exclusively for Art Council purposes.
Alderman Collins.
Yes.
Alderman Martin. Second. Okay, so let's discuss, so that's the motion on the floor. Alderman Collins withdrew her previous motion and went with this new wording, has made another motion, seconded by Alderman Martin. Anything you feel like you need to add?
No, it's good.
Okay,
Wait,
go ahead.
I'm
Annette.
wrong. The motion to amend the amendment, Sassy moved, we don't have a second.
Okay, well, he withdrew that because
So
we
he
just
withdrew,
changed
so
the,
we're
we
just
just changed the
changing the
amendment
language.
instead. Yep,
Okay,
yep, we
okay,
just-
okay,
so-
good, sorry, thanks.
So the person who made the motion was amenable to that request. Okay,
Okay,
so
got it.
Alderman Sassy. Anything
That's
else?
all.
Okay,
Thank
Alderman
you.
Dixon.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I look at this a little bit differently. It's not that I don't support the Arts Council. I absolutely do. My name is a sponsor on the ordinance. But to hold all revenue from this event, folks, the Arts Council has been to our Finance Committee meeting twice now. They have an excellent plan to move forward. It really mimics to me what Richmond, Virginia does with their folk art festival yearly. And they make a lot of money off that event, a lot. And I would like to see us to hold that revenue and for in the general fund. That's my recommendation, and I'm just going to say I'm not going to support this. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Okay. Jason, are you ready for us? Okay. All in favor of the amendment, please press your green button. Those opposed, press the red one. Need Alderman Waters and Alderman Waters. Okay, so that passes 7-5. Those voting in favor, Alderman Skidmore, Martin, Sassy, Garza, Collins, and Robertson, and myself. Those opposed, Alderman Peterson, Dixon, Goodwin, Garden, and Waters. So now we're back on the main motion. We can turn those off. Alderman Robertson, go ahead.
So evidently, and I'll ask this to the sponsor, evidently this item wasn't known at the time the budget was made. Is that correct? In June, July, when we approved the budget? It wasn't being planned, or?
I'm not very good at how long ago something was in general terms, but this has been discussed as an idea by the Arts Council. We didn't have we didn't go out for a request for a proposal until more recently, so we didn't have budget numbers that could be included in the budget because it's a first year. We didn't really know how much it would cost, or my recollection is that in June, this idea was still being discussed and vetted.
That's
and
good.
And then there wasn't we didn't really realize that the money would have to be included in the budget in this way with the layer of bureaucracy that government has, and that it wouldn't be self-contained in an Arts Council account. Because we had not moved, if you recall, earlier, we moved to establish accounts within the city's framework for finances for our committees, rather than them having their own independent checking accounts. So that change also helped necessitate this.
So the short is that the plans were still being determined at the time of the budget. It's why this money wasn't submitted at the budget, for the budget.
Yes.
Okay. I've got a question for our city attorney. I'm sorry I didn't give you a heads up. Thank you. Apologize. But several months ago, we passed an ordinance to try to prohibit a lot of budget amendments, that we wanted to wait until the mid-year budget when we could see the whole field, when we knew where we stood on revenues, expenditures, and needed expenditures. And so we passed an ordinance. You recall that ordinance?
Yes, sir.
I wonder, is this request in compliance with that ordinance?
Well, I believe it was, I don't remember the exact wording, but for
you want to refresh yourself on that ordinance?
Yeah, it was for something that was, of consequence, that something that was unforeseen, I guess you could say. I think it was, but I probably need to go back and read it. I know that there were some contingencies there on when you could amend the budget.
Yeah. And again, I'm not opposed to this. I'm all for it, as they say in East Tennessee. But I do, since I've been on the board, I wanted to concentrate on two things when I came to the board. First is to do what I could to create more of a strong mayor, a stronger executive branch on the board and the city government. The second thing was to try to instill more discipline in the budget. When I first came, about every meeting, we had amendments to the budget, more wish list, more and more. So my question to our guest is, how important is it for us to approve this now or wait till February? Jesse, is that when our mid-year budget's going to be done, in February? Yeah. How important is this allocation of money now could we wait until February? Again, I'm trying to fulfill that disciplinary, and I'll vote for it in February, may vote for it now, but I want to be consistent.
Yep, that makes sense. I think I can explain why it is up now. There was a first piece of the contract, or the original consulting, that ends at the end of December. This event is currently planned for May 11th and 12th. And essentially the recruitment of subcontractors, vendors, and all that needs to start taking place in December and January. And waiting till February wouldn't guarantee that the event could even happen or be put together in 3 months between February and May.
Okay. So you need it now?
Yes, and I also believe that that's 2 votes, and we were trying to get it in before the end of the year.
Yeah. All right, now let me ask a budget question, and maybe Jesse can answer this. Exhibit A in our notebook, page 24. Mr. Eckenroth? Should have had our finance director here, I guess. I see on page 24, Exhibit A, that current budget is $19,500. Does that mean that there is currently that much money for this project?
That money is sunk, so that money has been spent. That was phase 1 to get us to where we're at right now.
So that money was appropriated at the budget?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So actually, the rest of the money that we're looking at is the requested expenditure of $86,000.
Yes, sir.
Minus $15,000 we've already got in contributions, correct?
Yes, sir.
So if my math is correct, that comes to $71,115, give or take some change. Is that?
Correct. Yes, the $19,000 has been spent.
So I'm wondering why we're asking for an allocation of, what is it, 86,000?
86,615.
Yeah, 86,615 instead of 71,115. From looking at the budget numbers and the revenue.
Yeah, even though we've collected that money, the net effect will be that $71,000, but we have to appropriate the full expenditure of that. So even though we collected in a revenue account, we still have to give our finance department the authority to cut $86,000 in checks. They can't offset the revenue, so they have to be able to process $86,000.
But the net effect to the budget is $71,115.
Correct.
That's not assuming any revenue. I mean, we're hoping that there'll be revenue to cover it, and that's what the staff analysis says.
Yes, correct. It would probably be, we're looking at probably revenue neutral, but we have to appropriate the full funds because finance needs the authority to cut those checks, regardless of the money that comes in.
And my last question, do we presently have sufficient money to cover this expenditure?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That's all, Mayor.
Alderman Robertson, thank you. Alderman Waters.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to ask Alderman Karen and
Ward 4, if I may. Sure, go ahead. Okay. Karen, you're the chairman of the nonprofit committee that we have. Can you share with us how much this project has in the nonprofit?
We didn't, oh, that's a good question. How much did we allocate to the Arts Council?
The Arts Council is a city.
Hold on 1 second. Go ahead, Alderman Collins.
Oh, sorry. The Arts Council doesn't go through the nonprofit committee.
That's right.
Because it's
We took it out.
it's like beautiful Hendersonville or the Deer Herd Committee or any other of our citizen-led committees. It's a branch of this board in our city
Right.
government. It's not a nonprofit. There's no 501c3.
Yeah, the money that we used to say goes to the Arts Council goes to the MAC now, correct?
I would,
We- And,
that's probably,
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Alderman Waters.
they used to be listed as nonprofit, am I right? Before we made the change.
It's the Mont Haven Arts Council.
Isn't that the same?
That we donate
It is
to,
not.
not this.
That's not the same. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Waters. Thank you, Alderman Collins. Thank you, Alderman Dixon. Any other discussion? So we have one we have one amendment that passed. We're back on the main motion. All those in favor of ordinance 2023-25, please press your green button. Those opposed, press the red one. That passes 11-1. Alderman Skidmore, Peterson, Martin, Sassy, Garza, Dixon, Goodwin, Garden, Collins, Robertson, and myself vote yes, and Alderman Waters votes no. That passes with a majority vote. Next, we are on Resolution 2023-24. This is a resolution to place a historical marker at City Hall honoring William Henderson, for whom the city of Hendersonville was named, to be funded by the National Society of the Sons of the American Revolution. I have a motion from Alderman Goodwin, a second from Alderman Peterson. We do have some folks here to speak on this if you'd like to hear from them, or we can have discussion, or we can go ahead and vote. All those in favor of Resolution 2023-45, please say, oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Peterson, go ahead.
Yes, just one question, Mayor. I didn't see a cost involved for this marker.
Well, you just open the opportunity for the two people that are here to speak on this. So if y'all could introduce yourselves without objection, we're going to suspend the rules to hear from two members of the Sons of the American Revolution. Y'all go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. My name's David Treadway. I'm the Vice President of the Anthony Bledsoe chapter here in Hendersonville of SAR, which is Sons of the American Revolution. I've got a couple brochures if you don't know what SAR is, if I can.
Sure, yes, sir, by all means. Thank you. Thank you very much.
SAR was actually established in the late 1800s, was chartered by an act of Congress in 1906, so it's a old organization. Our main goals are education, honoring patriots from the Revolutionary War, which Captain William Henderson was one of those. And we started discussing a few months ago about honoring Captain Henderson, who the city's named after. And this would be a gift from our chapter to the city. There would be no cost to the city other than a place to place the monument. I think we discussed possibility of you might want a light on it at night or something. That would be up to the city if they wanted to do that. But as far as the monument itself, that's a gift from our chapter. Do you want to add anything, Stu? No.
Alderman Peterson.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. It's a great way to honor our founder. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Peterson. Any other discussion?
Oh, if I could add really quick,
go ahead.
we need about a 3 to 4 month headway for them to order the granite and cut it to the size and everything. So we're looking at late spring, April or May probably, and then we'll coordinate that with all of you and the wording and everything to be approved by the council.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Alderman Skidmore.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want to let the rest of the board know that it passed our Public Works Committee unanimous vote on that. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of Resolution 2023-45, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, we're on other agenda items, and that's vote on the reappointment of Rose Bleich to the Beer Board. We have a motion from Alderman Robertson, and there was a second from Alderman Dixon. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. That's unanimous. Thank you. Now we're on the item that we added to the agenda. That's the discussion of an interlocal agreement with the volunteer fire departments. Probably the best way to start on that is to ask our CEO, Jesse Eckenroth, and our police chief to sort of go over fire chief. What did I say? Police. He's not here, so we'll ask our fire chief to speak, since it makes a lot more sense anyway. Scotty Bush, and to tell us what's happened since our last meeting, and then maybe Chairman Goodwin can talk about the Public Safety Committee and sort of the conversation was there. But we are all eligible to raise questions and to speak as we want to. So Jesse, if you could.
Sure, I'll just talk about some of the administrative changes to the agreement, and then I'll let Chief Bush speak. There were really 3 amendments that BOMA had made. One was to identify mutual aid and automatic aid as an Exhibit A in the attachment. So that was done to the interlocal agreement. We specified churches and schools, and we specified the churches that our jurisdiction was closest to. So if Gallatin was closer to a church, or if White House was closer to a church, we did not include that in our Exhibit A, because another jurisdiction will respond sooner than that. There was a motion to remove what was then item number 7, which discussed that no compensation would be made. So that item was removed. And then there was a final motion that we put a November 30th date for the execution of this interlocal agreement. So that was included. And then we met with the fire chiefs from both volunteer stations, and I'll let Chief Bush talk about that.
So we did meet with them last week, the mayor, Mr. Eckenroth, myself, and my assistant chief. And I mean, the conversations were well. I think number 1 doesn't really have any hesitations. Of course, obviously, they've got to take it back to their boards to seek approval to make sure that their board supports, kind of like we have to do with you folks. Not sure about Shackle Island, where they're going to land. They had a few more questions and some stress points within what you guys and folks and the mayor have drawn up. We reiterated the fact that by November 30th, a decision has to be made. They're fully aware of that deadline, that if there's no agreement reached, that we would stop going out there per the mayor's request. And then obviously, you folks can talk about that and change that if that's what you desire. But right now, the way it stands, if we don't hear back from them November the 30th, we will not respond outside the city. I fully expect to hear back from number 1. I'm not real certain about Shackle Island.
So if we don't have an agreement in place by the end of the month, as I obligated myself to y'all, and I think y'all agreed with that, we're in a situation where our insurance coverage for our firefighters and for our equipment is tenuous. And I'm not willing to do that. The exception to that would be if we work under the state-allowed mutual aid where we would be covered. And so I need Lance to sort of explain a little bit about that, because I am very reluctant to discontinue our service to the schools and to the churches out there, especially if we have reason to believe that we have insurance coverage. So Lance, do you want to take that?
Well, as we discussed before, there's situations if something would be created as what would be considered a disaster or a state of emergency, those are automatically covered under state law. We would be covered for that. But anything for routine calls or regular calls, we would not be covered without interlocal agreements in place. But we did receive notification today, I think it was, first time I saw that our insurer said that we were covered, they would extend coverage while we're putting our agreements together, but they gave no more specificity to that as to how long that would be. So I think the answer is without the interlocal agreements, eventually we would not have coverage going outside the city limits unless it was a state of emergency.
So what I'd ask y'all to do tonight is to ask any questions that you would have, to have the discussion. Alderman Robertson brought up some very good points in the Public Safety Committee meeting. But I would also think that it would be beneficial to us to not rescind what we did a couple weeks ago. Before the end of the month, we have one more meeting. I think that we gave the two volunteer fire chiefs a reasonable agreement, and they're taking those to their board. If we change those now, I think that makes it a little bit confusing to their boards and a little bit more complex for them to make a decision. So Jesse explained what the agreements were that we offered. They're going to their boards right now and asking for approval for those. So I would ask you to not rescind what we did a couple weeks ago, but certainly we'll have that opportunity in 2 weeks because that would be before the end of November. So, any other discussion on this item? Alderman Robertson.
I didn't know if if Terry was going to say something first before I start my questions. Did you want to? Okay. The staff has shared with us some maps. Could you pull up the map that shows, perfect, that's it. Chief Bush, would you go over this map and tell us what the numbers mean?
Sure. So, Jason, can you kind of zoom in on the Hendersonville and the Shackle Island areas only? So what you see, you'll see some indicators that show our station locations currently. We do have, I think that station that's north of the bypass is predicted for 7. That should be completed at some point, but right now we're functioning out of the 6 where he's moving the cursor is where 7 is planned to be. That's station 6 where he was just at to the right of that, and then station 5 is just south of the bypass. So where you see those little Maltese crosses with our logo in them are all calls that we've responded to outside of our jurisdiction. You see that's kind of close to our city limits, mostly so. There's some that we've gone that are not really close to our city limits, obviously. But typically, those areas where the Maltese crosses are where we've responded the most. If Jason was to click on one of those, I think he'd have the ability to pull a call type up. If he just picked one randomly, what does that say? Is that a 300 series? 321. Yeah, 321, so that's a medical call. So basically, as we've talked about in the past, Shackle Island would have been dispatched for that medical call. If there was no response, they would dispatch Shackle Island again to that call. If there was no response, then they would trickle down to the next closest volunteer agency. If nobody answered that, then it would finally trickle down to us 16, 17, 18 minutes into it. And we all know that within 4 minutes, if somebody's suffering from a heart attack and they're not having proper blood flow or oxygen supply, the chance of survivability is very, very slim. Obviously, there's not but one person that controls that fate, but our chances to incur or rescue them are slim to none. Again, there's random calls. There's 500 series in there. We have gone outside of the Shackle Island jurisdiction to other jurisdictions to help the Sumner County Sheriff's Office retrieve evidence. We've gone and done a dive scenario for Portland. We do have instances where our dive team's been instrumental there. But I think we ran 138, 140 calls over a 5-year period maybe. We're averaging 18, 19 a year going out in the Shackle Island community. Typically, when we bring them in, we were talking about that in the public safety meeting, we brought Shackle Island in maybe 5 times in my 8.5, 9 years of being here as the fire chief.
So we're comparing apples to apples. So in the last 5 years, we have responded to 129 calls in the Shackle Island Volunteer District, correct?
Yes, sir.
And in that same 5 years, do you know how many times that we have called them for mutual aid to help us?
I would say 5 times or less, as I was saying.
5 times or less?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 129 to 5 times. What about number 1?
Jason, can you scan out to number 1's area, please, there to the east? It's at the purple, yes, sir. You'll see there's a few times that we've gone out there. Some of that is still in the city limits. The brown is still the city limits. That's like South Dames, Dames Avenue off Cages Bend. That's in the city. There's a new subdivision, as you folks know, that's going in out there in that area. I would say apples to apples with number 1. We've probably called on them more so than they've called on us. Historically, if we've had a big working incident and we don't have our extrication equipment readily available, number 1 is who we ask for first, because they always send a 4-man company or 4-lady company, whichever one they send to us, that has extrication equipment on it. Because both of our trucks are tied up on that incident, and we want to still have the availability to use extrication tools if there was, God forbid, another incident that occurred in Hendersonville where extrication tools will be needed.
So just stay up there.
Yes, sir.
I've got a comment to make. You know, to me, the threshold issue is, should city taxpayers be subsidizing fire protection services in the county? Should city taxpayers, because that's what's happening, your taxes are going to help provide fire protection service and emergency services in the county. And philosophically, I have issues with that. You know, I'm elected to represent Ward 6. I'm not elected to represent county residents. You know, fundamentally, I have a real issue with that. Now, the reason I believe there are some situations, let me cite a statute that our city attorney included in our packets. It's TCA 6-54-601, Contracts and Mutual Aid Agreements. In D of that code, it states that in the judgment of the city or town's governing body, that these contracts should be advantageous to and serve the public interest of the city and town. Now, I can think of some situations where it would be advantageous to our public interest, to the city interest. For example, situations at the schools, Beach High School or Hunter, the schools in that area, because city residents go to there. So if there's a fire there, it makes sense to me that it's in our interest to respond. I also think it's in our interest, and some may disagree, in a certain area of churches in that area, because our city residents may be in services when there's an emergency service or emergency call or a fire call. I would think that it would be advantageous to us. What I cannot understand, what I have not been able to wrap my mind around, and I would wish some members of this board would instruct me and help me to understand this, how is it in the interest of the city to respond to fire calls, residential fire calls, in the county that they're not paying city taxes? I cannot find, according to this statute, where it's in the city's public interest these residents, and we're seeing a proliferation of developments on the peripheral of the city. I'll just name a few of them. I went and looked. Oak Creek Estates. That's on Jones Road, 40.
Alderman Robertson, I'm going to interrupt you real quickly. We have a map that might help explain this a little bit.
Okay, please.
Okay.
Cue the map. Okay. Does this show the city limits?
All of these that are on here are outside the city limits. The dashed line is the city limits.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Okay. So you see here the proliferation of these developments on the peripheral of the city, in the future, in my mind, is going to require us to provide more and more services, city services, to county residents. One is Oak Creek Estates. I don't know if that's on
Which
there.
actually isn't even on here. It's being built right now.
Yeah, it's being built right now, 48, that's in the county, not in the city, but right on the city line. Norman Farms, I think Norman Farms is there. Again, that's right on Anderson Road. That's right between Ward 5 and Ward 6. Laurel Park, which is a new subdivision by the high school, a large development there. Tower Hill is another one that's very close to the city limits. And I don't know what phase it is, phase 2 or 3 or 4 of Somerset Downs. So, what I'm seeing is a proliferation of these, and I'm looking down the road that we're going to have to expend more and more city taxpayer money to provide fire services to these areas. So I really have a philosophical problem. I've not been able to comply, in my mind, comply with state law that it be advantageous and serve the public interest of the city and town. I can't see where it is to provide these services. So, all right, that's one statement. The next statement is this. If we don't get agreement with Shackle Island, and I may not support even if we do get it because of my philosophical reasons of subsidies, city subsidies, I think the staff needs to have a plan, and I hope that you're working on already putting together a private agreement so that we can go to the Board of Education, and I think the mayor's already talked maybe to the superintendent, but a private agreement that we can get private agreements so that we can go and be covered by our insurance. So I hope, Mayor, that you and Jesse and the staff will be working on that, and if it does look like that we're not going to get an agreement with New Shackle, we'll have these agreements that we can get them done before November the 30th. So let's see. I had a whole lot to say, but I think I've said enough. Some of the people that I've talked to in this area, they don't want the city. They don't want these services to the city. I mean, or in the county. I'm sorry. They don't want city services in the county. Some people, and I'm not saying the majority, but there are some that feel that this is an attempt to annex parts of the county. We're not trying to annex. It's through the goodness of our heart, I think, that we've tried to offer assistance to these volunteer fire departments. But I just don't get the feeling that some of the citizens really want us in that area. I know I've heard from at least one county commissioner that really don't want us there. So it's hard for me to support a large expansion or this agreement with all these new developments, and there's more coming because we're just about out of land in the city. Only place they can go is in the county for residential growth. So for those reasons, Mayor, it's going to be difficult for me to support. However, I think an important ingredient, I mentioned this in public safety, is that, Chief, tell us about claiming on a fire homeowner's insurance.
So there's in the small print on everybody's insurance policy, there's the possibility that you could bill that insurance company for services rendered. Obviously, we don't do it in the city limits because tax base pays for the fire protection. Obviously, we'd have to work through legal, figure it out how we would do that. But if we went out to a residence, if these agreements are agreed upon, there would be potential there for us to ask for the insurance company to provide a sum of money back. Now, how much that is that 20% of total loss, 30%? I don't know the particulars of that. I'm going to do some research tomorrow, try to call 5 or 6 insurance companies and see if they can kind of guide us in some form of a direction of what's legal and what is usually normally practiced when other agencies do that.
Okay, we talked about this in public safety, Chairman Goodwin, and the city attorney drafted some language. And if it's okay, I would like to amend these interlocal agreements to include a discussion or the language about the insurance. So if the agreements are in place and we go to the county and put out a fire, we can at least claim some expenses on their homeowner's insurance. That would at least compensate the city a little for the expenditures that we've made.
So what I can do is I can add that to the agreements that we propose to them. I'm happy to do that as soon as we get that wording. We'll do it as soon as possible.
Can you read what, Lance, do you want to?
Sure.
Just so that in conception, in concept, that we understand what will be added to these agreements.
What I jotted down based on those discussions was it would add it as 2F, which each party reserves the right to pursue possible remedies from the property owner and or the insurer or their insurer for reimbursement of reasonable costs related to the service provided.
So we're not seeking any compensation from the volunteer fire departments, which
No.
so they should not disagree with this, and they shouldn't see any impact on this at all. I would think. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I think it's reasonable.
I would like to have that added to the. Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Alderman Robertson, thank you. Alderman Skidmore.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of quick questions and then a couple of comments. How many, I know you had the medical calls were about 321 calls. Was that in the 5-year span or a year span, or how many?
We could only go back 5.
Yeah.
Mr. Eckenroth wanted us to go back 10, but we had a change in how we did our reporting system, so we could not track back 10 years.
Well, that's
5 years,
fine.
but all we could do. So as far as how many calls were medical, the 300 series, how many were fire calls, we didn't dive that deep into that. I can do that, have someone do that tomorrow and send that out to folks as well if that's what you're looking for.
Well, sir, I think actually that it would be, because you have to remember our medical calls, and I don't, this is what, and then I'm going to get to that, but the medical vehicles that have all the supplies and stuff, does the Hendersonville have any association with that, or is it the county?
The county owns the ambulance services.
Right.
Yes,
That's
sir.
I just want to make sure that that you and I are on apples to apples.
Yes, sir.
So that's why I find it hard to believe that argument could even be made, that because it's a county as well as the city. And I think my mother was one of the first ones really to get the fire department, the ambulances here into the city many years ago. And I'm not going to say how many years ago, because when I get home tonight, I won't get any supper if I was to say that, how much it was. But my point is this: I don't understand why this is being made a political issue. I mean, I kind of get it, but then when I look at the whole thing, this shouldn't be a political issue at all. It just shouldn't be. Do you know, as you as a fireman and also the chief of the fire department for the city of Hendersonville, every time that we've had a mutual aid agreement, has there ever been this kind of an issue at all?
So I think that's part of the rub, is there's always just been the gentleman's agreements. There's never been anything in writing.
Because I can't, as long as I've been up here, and unfortunately I'm not going to tell you how long that's been, because then you'll see why I don't. I got gray hair and I'm getting a little stomach here, but we've never had any problems like this, and I don't, want to. Every time there's an issue, it's like we're being scared into making a decision by one side or the other. There's always well, if we don't do this, then we're going to, we're losing taxpayers' money. And I don't understand why, in all the years that I've been up here, there's never been this issue until now. My final question is that was just for the aldermen to think about. I don't think we should make a decision on this tonight. I think we need to leave it just as it is, what we voted on and what we did. We just need to leave it alone and let the other fire departments figure out whether they're going to go along with us. I don't understand why that they wouldn't. I've never heard of any unless you know of any fire, has there ever been in our county of other fire departments have an issue with the county or the cities at all on this mutual aid?
We've had small issues, you know, between staff, nothing, just as far as, I guess, workers, right?
Right.
Who works, who doesn't work, and trying to get those folks aligned during emergency is kind of a hassle sometimes, but nothing out of the ordinary, because if we don't train together, we don't know what they expect of us, and we don't know what to expect of them. So you have those miscommunications sometimes.
Right.
But at the end of the day, missions accomplished, and everybody's returned safely throughout my career.
Okay, there's I have just two others, Mayor, and I appreciate the board's indulgence this evening. One is, what does the state want us to do with something like this? Do you know?
So the TCA and, of course, the public entity partners are insurance providers, the one
Yes,
that
sir.
kind of spurned all the big hot discussions about what we're going through right now. And so that's the sense of urgency. They did a presentation and talked about mutual aid and then what was needed for interlocal agreements. Mutual aid would be a storm, like a tornado that blew through 2 or 3 Decembers ago for us.
Yes, sir.
If we declared a disaster and we called out for Metro to come in and give resources, anything that would create potential harm to folks in our community, that's an ongoing situation that we could not mitigate ourselves, those things are covered by state law. We had a train derailment, and we needed to call Metro's hazmat team because we didn't have all the gear to dam or dike or stop the leak. We would have the ability to do that because it's going to create further damage to community, people, and property.
Okay.
These interlocal agreements are for regular occurrence calls, fires, medical calls, car wrecks. Those are the 3 things that are specified by public entity partners that we need the interlocal agreements for.
Okay, and so one thing that I do very much agree with the mayor on is about, and also I think Alderman Goodwin said this the last time too, is the protection of our firemen with insurance. And if the agreements don't get together, and I think Mayor Clary and Alderwoman Goodwin can enlighten me again just to make sure that I'm speaking about this correctly, and if I'm not, please stop me and let me know.
I'll stop you.
That if these agreements are not met, then if they get hurt or if there's some kind of insurance thing that needs to be filed, that we are not covered. Is that correct?
Workers' comp would cover you regardless, right?
Yes,
and I
sir.
think we found out today with some of the answers that came to us late this afternoon, if we have interlocal agreements and we're requested and we go outside the city and God forbid we
Right.
have an accident that hurts a taxpayer or a citizen in the county, we are covered. My concern for my folks was as individuals all recover. We got that answer today as well.
Okay.
If there's interlocal agreements in place
Right.
and or they are directed by a supervisor to go outside the city to perform their job, they would be covered by public entity partners once these agreements are in place.
All right. Do you all, is that the way you see it, Alderwoman Goodwin?
I think it's a good question. Alderman Goodwin.
The reason that the controversy has developed
Yes.
is, according to the insurance company, and Mr. Eckenroth, correct me if I'm wrong because I've dove way into this, if we do not have the agreement signed, the insurance carrier will not cover our firemen going outside of the city. I can't send our firemen outside of the
Right.
city without an agreement signed. And Alderman said last meeting, that's not true. Well, we have the paperwork from the insurance company that states that, and that's what the controversy. If they sign the agreement and we do a rider on the insurance, they will be covered. But if they don't sign the agreement, our firefighters are not covered going out of the city.
Okay, thank you. Is that the way you see it too, Mayor?
It is.
It is? Okay, thank you. And then my final thought is, and then just a quick comment, probably 15 seconds is, one thing we have not spoken about is what is our agreement with the police department with an agreement like this? Is this only for the fire, or isn't there an agreement?
So, we started looking into it the same time FD did when we found out from PEP that there may not be coverage. I reached out, talked to Mr. Ray several times, and I've also spoken with PEP. They have an opinion. I reached out to agency heads around us,
Yes,
and
sir.
we were all under the impression. So years ago, y'all know I've been here since 1985. Years ago, we had written agreements with all surrounding law enforcement agencies. With the Mutual Aid Act of 2004, not only us, but other agencies surrounding us that I've talked to, they were under the impression that those were no longer required for law enforcement.
Oh, okay.
The impression was that there was an exemption. We have no calls that we will routinely respond outside city limits for. Obviously, in a declared emergency, we'll go. We've gone to Cookville. We'll go if we go somewhere to help. And there's some other limited circumstances where we're operating under federal authority and we don't have to have a mutual aid or interlocal agreement to do that. But it appears that even if they call and request our assistance and it's not a declared emergency, PEP indicates that we should have one. So I've been working with Mr. Ray, and like I said, and talking to these other agencies, they're like, yeah, we don't have to have those anymore. I said, well, if you're insured by PEP, you might want to look at it because it appears that maybe you do. There's some language in the act that's a little, it's kind of a gray area when
Yes,
it comes
sir.
to law enforcement because, again, we don't enter into any agreement with an agency that says on this call or that call, we're just going to automatically go or we'll go routinely. It's usually a result of, a perfect example is this, Two Valley is outside the city limits currently. If the county was to call and say, we have a deputy going on a pretty hot call at Two
Sure.
Valley, and his closest backup is 45 minutes away in the north end of the county, can you send somebody back that deputy up? We'll go.
Okay.
And so we've always done that. I will say that it used to be probably a little more frequent because of the size of the sheriff's department, but with the current size of the sheriff's department, number of deputies they have on the road, that's a very infrequent occurrence for us now.
Okay.
I think Chief Bush has spoken to it. Obviously, if it's a major event in one of our schools or churches, even outside the county, where there's an active threat, we're all going. I mean, that's just bottom line, we're all gonna go. So we're still looking at that, speaking with PEP, talking to Mr. Ray about it, whether we have to do the same thing. So, and it's not a problem. We can do it and have all the surrounding agencies sign
Well,
up.
if you would, thank you for telling me that. That's interesting to know that. And if you could keep Alderwoman Goodwin's committee, abreast of what was going on, I'm sure she'll relay that to the board. I trust her good judgment on that.
Yes, sir.
So, and thank you, Chief, for that. My final thoughts, like 15 seconds, is I agree we really need to keep this as the way that we've got it. And then come back at the 28th, I guess, and see if there's any change that you have, or the mayor's office or the chief's office has gotten with number one and Shackle Island. I couldn't think for a minute. Shackle Island, and see what they come back with, and then we make a decision on this issue. But that's just my thought for this evening. But again, to keep it the way it is, and let's put this on the agenda on the 28th.
Appreciate
to
it.
discuss.
Thank you, Alderman Skidmore.
Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Waters.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me ask Alderman Goodwin, did I hear you say that if we went outside the city and one of our men got hurt, they would not be covered by workers' comp?
They would not be covered from liability outside of the city if we do not have an interlocal agreement signed, according to our insurance carrier.
That's workers' comp now.
Not workers' comp.
That's what I'm
For
asking you.
Liability, workers' comp, they should be covered.
They would be. Well, I misunderstood you.
But if they hit someone and got sued, the
That's
city
li-
could
that's
be,
liability.
the city could be liable, the firefighter could be liable.
I agree. I was talking about workers' comp. Okay, Chief, who will make a, let's go back to this, making a claim on the homeowners. Who would make that claim? Let's say you, God forbid, they came to my house. Who would make that claim, me or you?
We would initiate that claim with your insurance company if you lived outside the city.
No, it's not my house, it's next door. I'm talking, I'm sorry, I meant in my neighborhood, not me. But let's say the house next door is the one you went to.
Yes, sir.
You gonna make a claim?
Not in the city limits of Hendersonville, no, sir. Only outside the city limits, if my understanding is correct from what Alderman Roberson wants done. We would only make the claim for the folks outside the city, not folks inside the city.
Outside.
Yes, sir.
So if this was to pass down the road and you had to go outside the city, you could make a claim under their homeowner.
If the board so wants us to do that, then that's what we would do. Yes, sir.
Who said that?
If the board votes to do that, yes, sir, we would do that.
Oh, we got approved if you do that.
No, hold on. I've agreed that I'll put that in our agreement without the board voting on it.
It's okay. I'm just trying to find out, being in insurance all my life, when you say that, I get concerned.
There's no intent to do anything to the taxpayers of the city of Hendersonville.
That's what I want to hear you say.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Waters. Alderman Goodwin, anything else? Appreciate that. Somebody else had a light lit up. Did it just expire on its own, or do we need to? Okay, any other discussion on this item? So the next item that we have, let me explain what that would involve. If we have a motion to rescind, that would rescind the resolution we voted on 2 weeks ago. That would be Resolution 2023-43. I feel like the conversation was good. We had a suggestion by Alderman Robertson, something that should be included in the agreement. I'm happy to do that. I think that's a very good idea with the help of our city attorney, Lance. And so I don't feel like there's a need to rescind what we did a couple weeks ago. However, I will put this on the agenda again in 2 weeks and give you an update on that. We'll have a discussion ahead of it again. And if we feel like we need to rescind that agreement, we'll have that opportunity in 2 weeks. So we will move on to reports. And we are at brief committee reports. General Committee, Chairman Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. General Committee met tonight, and we had a long discussion about an amendment to the Westlake Plan. And if the board has any questions, I would like, if I may, Jason Gallo to give the report.
Good time was had by all.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, we weren't without technical difficulties tonight. So if you look online, you will see 2 videos, one part 1, one part 2. So aside from that, we did cover the Westlake. That was most of the night and the topic of the conversation. We also covered then Resolution 2348. That was actually withdrawn and deferred for 1 month. So we'll defer that until next General Committee. We've got Resolution 2349, a resolution amending Grace Place that was passed unanimously. We've got Resolution 2350, a resolution establishing fees for the Planning Department, and that was also passed unanimously. And then we discussed Resolution 2346, resolution adopting the conveyance of the real property. So what would be the Mayfair development that you all have talked about the last several times. So that will be coming forward then on the next BOMA meeting to you. Aside from that, other discussion items, we briefly talked about consideration of a lease agreement for Heritage Park House. More information still pending with meetings. And the last part was some impact fee updates that the planning department is working on with our chief of operations. That covers it for tonight. Any questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Chairman Peterson.
Thank
Chairman
you.
Goodwin, Public Safety Committee.
First, let me wish Mr. Eckenroth and his wife a happy anniversary. He graced us with his presence on his anniversary for a BOMA meeting, and we appreciate that. We discussed ordinance 2023-24, amending the municipal code regarding fireworks. And we agreed to send that back to BOMA with a positive recommendation, so you will probably see that in 2 weeks. And that concludes my report.
Chairman Goodwin, thank you so much. Next, we have our Planning Commission report from Alderman Martin.
Hey, everyone. So we had a really big meeting last Tuesday. It was kind of bifurcated. The first portion of the meeting was regarded Grace Place, and we had a lot of people come out and support that. There was, they brought an amendment to what was originally approved, what they, I don't know if there's graphics, but what was originally approved was more like a couple of apartment buildings, and they came back with a campus plan that had single homes, what they called bungalow, and it had a lot of green spaces for the kids. And we loved it. So they had a couple of variances. One was with parking. We didn't really, they demonstrated that they didn't really need it based on how they're going to use it. And the other one was the landscape around the perimeter, which is really to protect property owners from industrial, not the other way around. So we went ahead and granted that. And so we're excited about that. The other one that we had a lot of speakers show up for was the Westlake plan. We had some speakers for it, a lot of attorneys. We had Woods Drink Water for the Grove at Waterford Crossing Apartments by Parkside Builders. We had Patrick Parker, an attorney for Delta Investment Partnership, who was involved with the Grove at Waterford Crossing. And then my colleague Marty Cook, who was there for, I guess, a variety of developers, including the Grove at Waterford Crossing Apartments. They were there to express their objection to the Westlake plan's impact on the Grove at Waterford Crossings, apparently. And I think it was mentioned in General Committee that they were here earlier to protest their property being pulled out of the mixed-use residential. So they wanted to be pulled back in. I don't know where that's going to go from General Committee. I don't think it goes back to the Planning Commission, so straight to BOMA. So I want to let everybody know that the Planning Commission and the planning staff did a phenomenal job with the Westlake plan. And whatever happens with politics moving forward with it, everybody that participated in it for the city, for the residents, they did a really, really great job. We had a couple of projects on the consent agenda. Campbell Crossing, they submitted a plat that was pretty straightforward. That was approved. Music City Studios, they submitted a site plan renewal. Basically, the time that they had 2 years ago is coming up, and so they just simply asked for more time to act on what was approved. So that just says, hey, that project is still viable, and we all hope that it comes. And then the other project was the Staples at Hunt Club. That was a pretty straightforward project for a commercial application. And we did not have any planning director comments from Keith Free. So that's my report.
Alderman Martin, thank you. Next, we have our CEO's report for the board. That's Jesse Eckenroth.
Thank you, Mayor. Just let you guys know that we're almost done with our paving for the year. Public Works has been working hard on it. As you know, we have 35% less paving this year than last year, based on that contract with Rogers Group going up 35%, but we're about wrapped up with that. It's been really good to see the pavement getting done, but that progress will stop here shortly. Jason, if you don't mind pulling up the BOMO report, we'll spend a few minutes to go through it. If you could zoom in on that so we could see that a little bit better. And we'll start on that top slide there. So this is local sales tax. You can see there's 3 colors on there. The blue, which is 22. Green is 23. Fiscal year 24 is orange and lays right over the green. So we have less than 1% growth from 23 to 24. It still is growing a little bit with Costco opening tomorrow. Hopefully this trajectory is going to bump up a little bit. If you'll scroll down, Jason, right there, for interest earnings, you scroll up a little bit for interest earnings this year. We're at $122,000 in September compared to $4,400 from last year. Local sales tax revenue on that column graph is shown as a little bit of an increase from fiscal year 23, about $50,000. You go ahead and scroll down. Local sales tax and permit revenue, I put these together because it's a sign of economic development with how well sales tax and new permits are coming through the city. So that's up a little less than 5%, so that's on a decent trajectory. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Jason. Our general fund operating expenditure, so we're seeing a rather significant jump. We had a really big jump in August. September, we're a little less than fiscal year 23, but we're almost 11% up year to date from where we were last year on our general fund operating expenditures. So obviously we don't like to see our expenditures outpacing our revenue, but that's what we're seeing right now. If you go to the next slide, please, Jason. Really good news is that both fire and police calls for service are down compared to the last 2 years. So you can see the orange line for fire is down. If you scroll down a little bit, you can see police is also down below where it was last year. So, a lot of that's due to preventative work and the good work that both of those departments do. So that's really good news. That column graph is just showing year over year, very close to last year, but again, we're down a little bit overall. The next slide, this is where we'll stop at. But I just want to show you the trend on the codes. Is that a residential permits issued in that bottom line where the cursor's at is down over the last 2 years. But on the commercial side, we're up significantly. We have some fee updates coming for both for the commercial permits, and then we have some impact fees that we're going to be presenting to BOMA on the residential side of things. But the trend that we're seeing right now is that residential is down, commercial is up. So that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Appreciate that, Jesse. There's a comment made earlier about the city being unaccountable. Actually, we were accused of being unaccountable 5 times by one person tonight. It is about the roundabout. Can you explain the work that's being done at the roundabout?
Yes, the roundabout is part of the development that is happening behind Hobby Lobby. So you've seen some cranes and some buildings being developed behind Hobby Lobby. As part of that project, they went ahead and developed the roundabout for the city, so at no cost to the city. When our inspectors went out there, they saw something that wasn't done quite according to plan, so they just asked they held the developer accountable, and they said, hey, this wasn't done per plans, come back and fix it. The developer is working at night, so that's not such an impact on residents. They're fixing it at their sole cost. There's no cost to the city for the roundabout or for the repairs that they're doing to the roundabout right now.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Jesse. You see that in 2 weeks, we're going to have consideration of the appointment of Tim Mannion on the beer board. But other than that, we have a motion to adjourn from Alderman Waters, a second from Alderman Dixon. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. We're adjourned, and thank you all very much. Jason, are we off? Hey, by the way, y'all,